Trotskyism. Was it the true continuation of the revolution, or was it the ideology that betrayed it from within? That's the huge question we're going to tackle today.
So let's meet the man himself, Leon Trotsky. I mean, this guy was a giant of the Russian Revolution. He was right there with Lenin, a brilliant speaker, a genius organizer who basically built the Red Army from nothing and then led it to victory. For a lot of people, he was the revolution.
So that brings us to the big mystery, right? How does a guy who is second in command, a revolutionary hero, end up getting scrubbed from the photos, chased around the world, and, well, you know the story, an ice pick in Mexico? The answer is a brutal clash of ideas and power.
All right, to really get what happened to Trotsky, you first have to understand the man himself. And at his core, his entire identity was wrapped up in one single thing: being a revolutionary.
And this quote just says it all, doesn't it? He wasn't some armchair theorist, he was all in. Even when he'd lost everything, his power, his country, he kept fighting with the only weapon he had left, his words. And he knew it would get him killed. That kind of conviction comes from a really powerful idea.
And that idea was called permanent revolution. Now, at the time, most Marxists thought a country like Russia had to go through a whole long capitalist phase first. Trotsky said no way. He argued the workers had to seize control and push straight for socialism. But, and this is a huge but, there was a catch.
His theory really had three main parts. 1. The revolution starts with democratic goals but has to immediately become socialist. 2. It can't ever stop. It has to be a continuous, ongoing process. And 3. The big one, it has to go international. Trotsky was absolutely convinced that a single socialist country, especially one like Russia, would eventually be crushed if the revolution didn't spread to the big industrial powers. And that idea right there, it put him on a collision course with his biggest rival.
Which brings us to the main event. After Lenin died in 1924, it all came down to a massive power struggle between two men and their two completely different visions for the future.
And here it is, side by side. You've got Trotsky, the ultimate internationalist, saying they had to spread the revolution to survive. And then you have Joseph Stalin, who comes up with this idea of socialism in one country. His pitch was basically, hey, let's forget the world for a minute. Let's just focus on building our own power right here at home. And for a country that was just exhausted by war and upheaval, that was a pretty appealing message. As Stalin started to win that argument and consolidate his power, Trotsky saw the writing on the wall. He didn't see a successor to Lenin. He saw the guy who was leading a bureaucratic machine that was choking the life out of the original democratic spirit of the revolution. He basically accused Stalin of killing everything they fought for.
And the outcome of that fight? It was brutal and swift. I mean, look at this timeline. Lenin dies in 24, and by 27, just 3 years later, Trotsky is kicked out of the party. 2 years after that, he's kicked out of the country. He gets bounced around from place to place until he finally lands in Mexico, but even an ocean wasn't enough to protect him.
So Trotsky is gone, but the fight over his legacy? Oh, that was just getting started. To this day, people are either fiercely loyal to his ideas or they absolutely despise them. There's really no in between.
Now, if you're a Trotsky supporter, you're going to point straight to Lenin. Even after years of butting heads, when Trotsky finally joined the team in 1917, Lenin himself said there was no better Bolshevik. For them, Trotsky is the true heir, the one who never gave up on the real goal of world revolution.
But then you talk to his critics, and whoa, it is a completely different story. They see Trotskyism as this super destructive ideology. They argue that by constantly attacking actual socialist states, all Trotskyists really do is make people afraid of communism itself.
And some go even further. Critics like Harpal Brar flat out say that Trotskyism became a tool of imperialism. The logic is that by attacking anti-imperialist movements, they were effectively doing the dirty work for the other side. So, was he a hero or a traitor? The debate is as hot today as it ever was.
You know, this whole historical showdown between international revolution and building up a nation, it's not just stuck in the past. It actually gets at some really fundamental questions about politics that we're still wrestling with. And it kind of makes you wonder where you'd stand.
I mean, let's be honest. All these labels, Trotskyism, Stalinism, whatever yism, it can get super confusing, right? But they're not just random names. They're actually blueprints for totally different ways to run a society.
And that's what's so interesting. They all have these big ideas about government and freedom and the economy. It really makes you stop and think, what are my values? Where do I actually land on all these big questions?
Well, if you've ever been curious about that, there's this really fascinating tool online called the 8 Values Political Quiz. It's cool because it doesn't just stick you in a left or right box. It actually maps out your views on 8 different scales, things like how you feel about markets or tradition or state power. It gives you a much clearer picture of what you actually believe.
It's a great way to make sense of all this complexity and see where your own ideas fit in. Would you have been more of an internationalist like Trotsky or more of a nationalist builder like Stalin? If you want to check it out and get your own political profile, just head over to 8values.cc. Honestly, the results might really surprise you.